Technical difficulty.
You're about to do a song for us, Rachel.
I was.
And you were live just now, just letting you know. But
well, I mean, could give a whole
maybe treat us at the end. So hello, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of ADHD Awareness Month, our LinkedIn Lives for Empower ADHD and Ascend ADHD. I am Stephanie Camilleri, and we have Rachel Jones, lovely Rachel Jones, who is the heart of Empower ADHD. So you get the pleasure of speaking to her if you give us a call. And so today we are talking about, I'm going to do my little ticker thing here.
Whoa.
I know, fancy. Yeah, who said ADHDers can't do tech? When ADHD meets autism and other neurodiversity. So what we call AuDHD, it's known as AuDHD now. And we had a really fantastic conversation with Professor Valeur, and we touched a little bit upon this, and we really wanted to bring her back to talk about this today, but she's a very busy woman. So you just stuck with Rachel and I, I'm afraid.
We'll suffice.
Exactly. So this week, which is nearly ended, obviously today's last day, ADHD Insights. But don't worry, it's not as if we'll have no more ADHD Insights for the rest of the month. So next week, we've got ADHD in academic success. Week 3 is the workplace and business. And week 4 is family and friends. And then that will end culminating in our Ask a Coach Q&As and our coaching summit, ADHD Coaching Summit, where I'll actually put the registration link in there in the comment section of LinkedIn, and do register because we've got David Gewerk, founder of ADCAR, opening the summit for the 3rd time, and the Federation of Small Businesses, day 2, opening that day. So it's going to be really, really interesting. So do register for that. However, today we're going to focus on ADHD and autism and other neurodiversity, aren't we, Rachel?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
As Rachel well knows, and many hopefully other ADHDers and you well know, ADHD often does not travel alone. It usually coexists with other neurodiverse conditions like autism being one of the big ones, hence AuDHD, but also things like dyslexia, dyspraxia, OCD, there's usually a whole range. We're kind of cocktails, aren't we? There's many faces. Taking it back to the theme, Rachel, there's many faces of ADHD, and this is certainly one of those faces that there are definite, not just ADHD, but all these other conditions at play that make up a very unique brain wiring.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know it's very common to kind of see a lot of one definition of something, and you're ADHD, so you're like this. You're autistic, so you're like this. You've got dyslexia, so you're like this. It's, when you actually start unpacking it, there's so many different elements. It's why, obviously, the many faces of ADHD being so important, and truly understanding what everything is, the ways that it presents in different people. Obviously, yesterday, when we were talking about in women in particular, and obviously how it gets misunderstood, it's so important. It's why we do what we do, so that we can actually, help more people can understand. When we have more understanding as a society, we're more accepting, and we can actually empathize a bit more with other people and hopefully make a lot of change, which is really exciting. So obviously we've got today ADHD, autism, other neurodiversities. Stephanie, a little bit of explanation. Obviously, if someone's kind of new to neurodiversity, new to ADHD, new to autism, what is ADHD, first and foremost?
So, well, it stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. Obviously, a lot of problems with that definition, disorder, right? It can be, obviously, when it's not supported, it can have some very negative outcomes, which we spoke about on day 1. If you've missed that, do have a listen to day 1. But also attention deficit, because ADHDers, we don't have a problem with, attention in terms of the situation. Depending on the situation, we can have a massive surplus, like, too many interests, too many ways of doing things. Our problem is having too many choices, and that can get very overwhelming, and that can paralyze us. So, the name is quite misleading, attention deficit. because, and yeah, we can very much have a surplus of attention. We can hyper focus when we're authentically interested. So that's what ADHD stands for. And we talked about, I think it was it yesterday? No, it was day one. We talked about the 3 different types that you can be, predominantly inattentive, predominantly hyperactive, or combined type, and have all of the lovely cocktail. And which is, I have the pleasure of being combined type. It then gets a little bit more, it's more nuanced, obviously, than just these 3 categories like we spoke about on day one. And so again, do listen to that. It's so much more than that. Dr. Dodson came up with a more functional definition that we really like to use and draw upon in coaching, in that, ADHDs have an interest-based nervous system, operating in an importance-based world, and also the really important traits of emotional difficulties with emotional regulation, and particularly the rejection-sensitive dysphoria. That's not in the DSM-5, which is crazy, given how huge, this would be the most debilitating trait, I'd say, of ADHD. And what you'll see when we talk about AuDHD is actually, from what I've seen in coaching, at least over the last decade, it's more pronounced in AuDHDers as well. So that's the ADHD. And that's what we do mostly. That's what we do, ADHD coaches. But the autism, you probably want to know about that one too, a little bit. Okay. So again, you've got your DSM-5 definition, as they have with ADHD. And again, we've got some deficiencies with that. Like I didn't mention before, but with ADHD and the DSM-5, that diagnostic criteria, it was very much created to pick up the hyperactive naughty boy in the classroom, right? So very much kind of misses the mark for a lot of girls and women with ADHD. Similarly, with autism, the ADOS test, for instance, is so common for girls and women that go and get assessed for autism to not reach the threshold. They just don't. And so they then don't get the diagnosis. And that can be a problem, because actually they may have autism. Yeah, which obviously is not a problem in itself, but not knowing about it is a problem. Can be a problem, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it was really interesting, because obviously right before we came on the live, we were doing a bit of planning, kind of a little bit of a guideline, because me being myself, a road mapper, I'm, have to have everything written down, everything planned out. And the more we talked about everything, it actually highlighted a lot of things for me. And so when I had my ADHD assessment, I was diagnosed straight ADHD, no autism, nothing. Although when I first started looking into everything, there were a lot of things that I was like, that's not me with an ADHD profile. But the autistic profile, I was like, that's like the flip side of it was that. And the more we spoke in our conversation, the more it highlighted it. And it was something that I'd kind of always felt. I was like, when I first started looking, I was like, it could be, didn't get diagnosed as it. So I was like, okay, yeah, no, probably not. It always lingered still. And I was still a bit like, God, like really think so. But I was like, no, I'm just, and this was what I was like, I'm just being dramatic.
Oh, no.
Which was, yeah. And it was really hard. And I kind of was like, oh, I don't think so. I'm thinking that it's something that it's not. I know a lot of people with autism, and I know, a lot of the ways that it affects them, and it can be debilitating. But I'm like, but I somehow do this. And we unpacked so much of that this morning, which was really incredible in terms of where it comes in and where other things override it almost, and that constant perfectionism, worry spiral, the RSD being so massive. Yeah. And it made so much sense. And it's one of those where I didn't feel, oh gosh, this is another thing. It was a relief.
Yeah. When you understand, right? So because it's really like we keep talking about with ADHD, for instance, the importance of being able to look through that lens, the lens of ADHD, for yourself to understand yourself and to be able to differentiate between what you would historically have classed as character flaws, to be able to compare that against what the traits.
Yeah.
It's just the way you're wired. It can be like with autism, like we talked about, sensory sensitivities, that this is a thing. Actually, wow, you might not find it's hot, but I'm about to suffocate and literally, for someone, if I don't get cool, like I'm not going to be the best version of myself if we don't put the air conditioner on, for instance, when other people will be like, it's not hot. What do you mean? And that's the issue. This was one of the big things, wasn't it? Because obviously the sensory, differences and sensitivities in people with autism and AuDHD is going to be more impactful than if you've just got ADHD, and certainly if you're neurotypical.
Yeah. And I think the thing is why, we need more conversation around it is a lot of people don't realize the extent of which that sensory bothers you. You kind of think, well, okay, you're a bit hot. That's fine. But it can be absolutely crippling. I have a thing with loud eating noises. I cannot stand it. And I put up with it for ages. I kind of just like sit there because I was like, don't make a big deal out of it. It's fine. You'll be fine. But then I started just not being able to cope with that. And I have a friend who eats very noisily. I love her to bits, but she eats very noisily. And we would be sat around the table at school, and I could hear her eating sat next to me. And I was like, and I'd reached the end of my tether. I was tired. And I was like, I can't do it. And I turned around and I was like, the sound of you eating literally makes me want to pull my eyeballs out and rip off my skin. It's that feeling though. It's like, you can see in the kind of tensing, it feels like that. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to explode. I need to just like, ugh. And a lot of people don't understand that that's the extent that when you're hypersensitive to something, it's not just, oh yeah, that's a little bit loud, or I don't quite like that feeling. It is debilitating. And when people don't understand that, it makes it worse, because these things leave a lasting effect that you take with you. I was telling Sophie, I saw something last night that actually it made my heart so warm, because I was like, oh my gosh, there's a barber in Texas. I don't know if anyone's seen him before, but it was my first time seeing him. So I'm very excited about it. But he does sensory haircuts for kids. Yeah. And he was showing videos of, when, in particular, obviously barbers don't understand that, the sound of clippers, someone being around you, all the noise going on there, the chair staring at yourself, it's all so overwhelming. And it's young kids that are literally having a meltdown. They are screaming, they're sobbing, because it's so overwhelming to that point.
Yeah.
And everybody else is just kind of standing around laughing and finding it a funny thing. And, the barber that he showed a video of didn't know how to deal with that, obviously didn't understand the impact that it was having, and obviously, was just getting his job done. But the way to do that, and the way that was perceived as the right way, you have to just do it. So he was, holding this kid down, literally clipping like this. The kid is screaming. And it was, and so it's not that hard to adapt. What he does instead, he has weighted capes. That's the name of his shop, the Weighted Cape. And sensory toys, and the kids can just get up, move around, and he'll just follow on, and he takes his time with it. And so you just can move around. They can sit on their parents' lap. If they don't like something, he'll stop. And he'll make friends and ease everyone into it. So it's so much less trauma that these kids are going to be carrying through life. And it's not that hard of an adjustment.
No. Yeah. No, they're really good illustrations. And thank you as well for sharing, you know, like your experience, the authentic experience, because yeah, a lot of ADHDers, people with autism, the shame that they carry. You were talking about how other people don't understand, but what I've seen in coaching, they sometimes for the first time writing coaching, they realize they, you know, hang on, this is a thing. They thought everyone was as hot as they were or as annoyed by that eating as they were, but they're just too sensitive, over dramatic, or, you know, even worse, selfish.
Exactly. And that's a lot of the narrative that, you know, is there, where it's, if you can't deal with something, you know, you need to find a way to get around it.
Exactly.
You need to just, you know, you need to learn, if you can't deal with someone eating and you get angry at that, you just need to learn social etiquette. You know, you just need to put up with it. You know, you just need to kind of compose yourself, get over it. You know, it's nothing, it's not that. And so a lot of people, and I had a lot of shame with it as well, where I was like, oh, yeah, just, I'm being dramatic, I'm just making a big deal out of it. But it's not, it is that visceral feeling. And when, you know, there isn't that understanding, and when you're being, and as someone with that, you know, you're thinking, I'm being dramatic, I have to just, you know, get on with it and deal with it and find a way. But living through all of that pain every time is tiring.
Oh, massively. Yeah, the drain. Yeah.
And you add, you know, masking on top of that in every other setting, now trying to mask that pain as well. And that's not a way to live. No. And so it's why, you know, the conversations and why the understanding is so important. Because, you know, when it's not your experience, it's hard to, I understand, you know, it's hard to try and kind of see it.
Put yourself in the shoes, you know, which actually, and that brings us to another point in terms of autism and this kind of belief, or particularly for the AuDHDers, that's all I can kind of speak for in terms of who I coach, but that they've got no empathy. Because my AuDHDers that I coach are the ones that are the most, you know, the most caring, the most affected by other people and their discomfort and how they feel, like almost in terms of that sensory sensitivity. It's almost as if the AuDHDers have got a sensory sensitivity to like their energy, their moods, you know. So with AuDHDers, they've got the RSD, kind of like a double effect of RSD, in that if they've upset someone, not only will they feel the RSD of knowing that they have, they will feel it as well, you know. And so even more, someone like, and we were talking about this earlier, Rachel, who's a problem solver and generally cares, she's got kindness as a signature strength. Even more, Rachel needs to and feels, you know, and wants to help everyone and make everyone, you know, feel good and takes responsibility. Don't you? Like, for like, oh no, you can't feel like that. Like, I got to help you. Yeah. And like you said earlier, with all the sensory stuff that you're carrying yourself, plus that as well, because you're already exhausted, what happens to you? What happens?
It's a whole spiral where I'm just so physically burnt out and tired. But it's the same time, you don't, you know, every part of you is telling you, take a break, you know, please relax, please relax. But then there's other people's feelings that come into it. And so you're like, well, now if I stop, you know, someone's going to think this, someone's going to think that. I was speaking earlier about, it was a whole thing when I was, you know, kind of looking at, okay, maybe it might be autism as well. But I was like, it can't be, because I know, you know, some people find it incredibly hard to even just leave their house. So won't go out, won't see friends. Clubbing in particular is a big one, where, you know, you're going on a night out and some people can't do that. And so they won't do that. For me, I'd be, you know, the whole process of leaving and, you know, doing makeup, hair, outfit. You then factor in the insecurity of that as well and going, well, now it just doesn't quite look right. And so I'm getting so worked up and stressed. Every inch of my body is going, stay at home, just stay at home. Don't go out. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And as I'm still trying to push through, I'm like, I'm burnt out. I need to stay. I'm tired. nothing looks right, spiraling. But I will leave the house purely because of, if I don't go, I'll miss out on something. People will change their impression of me. They'll think that I'm this. You know, what's the conversations going to be when I cancel last minute about me? You know, what I've told someone that I'm going to do something, so I should do it. And so even though physically I'm like, I literally can't, I have to, because that RSD is so high.
Yeah.
Everything is overwhelming, but I have to, because it affects other people. And so then you're more tired, and everything repeats itself, which is not fabulous. But, you know, it's when people say that autistic people don't care, you know, that it's selfish, it's this. It's not. You don't know the narrative that's going on in someone's head until you talk about it.
Yeah, and you don't want to know either, because usually that narrative, you've got, I mean, when I'm coaching someone and they're talking about, so say they're meeting someone, I was coaching a 16-year-old girl, and she was talking to me about what she's thinking when she goes and, you know, talks to a group of her friends. And I was, whoa, wow, you know, like just all the questioning, the self-doubt, and like the road mapping that happens, you know, this, and if I say that, and maybe I should, like what you were saying earlier, that quite often, you know, if you're in a social situation, like you may not speak because of that. Is it going to be the right thing to say? Could this be construed this way? You'll actually think about how it will be received versus, say, ADHD, like me, straight ADHD, are kind of impulsive. They can't roadmap. I just say it, right? Because I don't think about the implications, and that obviously has its own problems, and I can get into trouble. And my defense has always been, my intentions were always good. I never meant to, like, you know, just know this about me. And that's the thing. And that's why our friends, and having trusted friends that truly understand you, that can look through that lens, that they are able to just, you know, meet those needs in terms of like, okay, we'll just let that go. Or, what time did we say? No, we know, Stephanie, no, she won't be here for another 10 minutes. Or maybe Stephanie's not coming. You know, and having friends that they still love you, that they know, you know, that your intentions are good, that you love them, but ADHD, or you're AuDHD, or you're autistic, you know, it is so important, right? So important that lens can be looked through.
Absolutely. And when you understand that it's not bad intentions, it's not someone just being selfish, it's not someone just refusing to cooperate. There's so much else going on, and the intentions are so good. It's a physical thing that you can't control, no matter how much, you know, you're like, I just sometimes can't do that. Yes. And that's so fine. And I'm not being dramatic. It's okay, you know, the boundaries, it's okay to just be like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, the perception is that it looks a certain way. When you understand it, that it's not how it looks, it's so important, because, you know, when you're trying so hard to do something and something's just not quite working, it's infuriating. It's like
frustration. The AuDHD frustration levels tend to be higher than just the straight ADHD levels, definitely, as well, because that perfectionism in particular too, which we were talking about before as well, remember? Because it's not just about the communication and the social kind of being the best friend you could ever have. If I'm going to be here, I've got to be valuable, and everything I say has to, you know, add value to you somehow. That's, again, it's such a high standard to set yourself, and again, absolutely exhausting. It's no wonder that so many AuDHDs and people with autism, you know, avoid social situations, right? Like, it's no wonder. If you're putting that kind of pressure on yourself with everything else that you're tolerating, there's just no fuel in the tank for that.
Yeah. And then it's one of those where you think that it's kind of like what I had when I'm looking at people, and I'm like, but I am going out. So it must not be. So I must just be being dramatic. But it's like, actually, no, like, look at everything going on. And it's why talking it through, exactly, you know, with coaching, you know, speaking everything through and having an outside perspective point that out and go, you know, look, I didn't realize a lot of the time how much effort I put into things and how much we broke down when I couldn't walk outside to go to the shop. I have 2 shops across the road from me. I would always order on Deliveroo, and I was so mad at myself for it. I was like, oh my God, why can I do that? And Stephanie was like, what's actually going through your head when you're thinking of that? And I'm like, well, you know, I have to do da-da-da-da. It's so many steps. But without that outside perspective, you don't see it, and you think that you're being dramatic and that is this. And I was like, well, like, it can't be autism as well, because I'm not, you know, I'm leaving. Like it's fine. I managed to do it in the end, so I can't be actually, you know, like this. And it's all from perspective that I didn't know beforehand, and it's why, you know, we talk about it, because it's so easy to look at that and go, oh, you know, why am I like this? I can't do this, I can't do that. But looking at that, and all of that planning is its own strength at the same time.
Definitely.
And it's so easy, like, you know, like we're kind of saying at the start, it's very easy to get wrapped up in, oh yeah, you know, it's a bad thing, you know, all of this is a bad thing. That planning that I do, it's a strength, and it, you know, it can be debilitating, but it can be incredibly useful.
Yeah, depending on the situation, right? And that's the thing. It's about, because it's something that you just do naturally, the road mapping AuDHDers. And the problem is that the day-to-day, you know, because your brain can't help it, it will road map, you know, the smaller things that, you know, don't really deserve that type of attention and effort, but the brain can't help it, you know, but then put you in a position, you know, of a crisis or something really complex. And again, your brain will, you know, do the road mapping, and boom, you know, you're the one in the room with the solution, right? Like I said to you earlier, the AuDHDers that I coach, they're the ones at the top of the industry. They're the managing directors, you know, they're the CEOs, right? Because they're so strategic, you know, they're road mappers. You guys can see around the corners, you see the car crashes coming, right? Like, it's a huge strength, AuDHD. However, like you said, it's about understanding, though, with it definitely can come some real difficulties and challenges, and they are absolutely valid. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's not, I think my kind of point with it is it's not you being dramatic.
God, no.
Which was a big thing for me, as, you know, I've talked about a lot. I'm seeing things and I'm like, well, you know, I'm just being dramatic, you know, it's just this, it's just that. But when you think of the effect that it's had,
yeah, that
isn't dramatic. You know, if someone was literally ripping your skin off, you would feel the pain. Do you know what I mean? Like, sorry,
but like, we're trying to work out what that's like, guys. Yeah,
it's the effect of it, where it's like,
yes. Anyone taking things literally, please. Yeah, but no, but it was a really, no, but it is so valid. And just on that, and finishing off what you said, what we say in coaching as well with our ADHDers and AuDHDs, it's never just, right? Like, and we talked about this when we met up, and remember the jumper thing? It was hot. Okay, I take my jumper off. And then, you know, you were sitting there and it was hot, but you said the jumper on. I'm like, why aren't you taking your jumper off? And then, do you remember how you replied?
So taking a jumper off for me is not simple. Taking a jumper off is, you know, first of all, you've got to move your hands, move your arms, do all of that. You've got to somehow kind of make sure that nothing gets caught. You've got to go over the head, you know, as wearing makeup, hair done, earrings, like, make sure I don't rub any of that off. I've got to squeeze through a tiny gap where, like, I can't see for a minute, which is worrying. And so I'm like, I'm trying to make sure that nothing gets caught. Obviously, once I've taken it off, I then have to make sure everything's fine again, you know, that I'm all good, readjust, find a new comfy position again, because I probably got uncomfortable by that point. So I'm like, well, now I need to find where it is again, put the jumper down, make sure everything's good. But it's not just that. It's now I have to remember to pick up my jumper when I leave. And so I now know that I'm going to be sat there in a conversation going, Rachel, remember to pick up your jumper when you go. Rachel, remember to pick up your jumper when you go. And then when I'm actually going, have to remember to pick up my jumper again, or if it's cold outside, put it all back on again. And so
that's probably just a fraction of your roadmap that you go, and isn't that such a powerful, like, just listening to that, and any neurotypical or ADHD, straight one, kind of like myself, like, so in contrast, guys, when I'm hot and I've got a jumper on, I take it off. Just go. And yeah, I may forget it, usually do, but usually I have someone like Rachel saying, hey, your jumper. And like, aha, thank you. Or sometimes, worst comes to worst, sometimes I get stuck, like you said, the opening, like I can't get out of my head, and I might look like a bit of a, but with sheer force, like our ADHD superpower of sheer force, just nearly pull my head off at the same time. But hey, we did it. I did it. Cool. Now I'm cool. That's all good. You know, and that is the difference in, look at my journey. You know, may have not been as elegant as Rachel's, but
mine probably wasn't elegant.
I actually took it off, like, you know, and I'm cool now, right? And then Rachel's, quite often, no, because of all of that, you're going to be sitting there and you're going to stay hot. And if you've got a hypersensitivity to heat, you're going to be suffering.
Yeah.
You know, and that is the situation. This is what AuDHDers face, you know, and we're just talking about taking off a jumper. And we want to leave you with that. We want to leave you with that, so that if you do have AuDHD and you have been, you know, ashamed or thinking you're dramatic, right? It's never, you're completely valid. And it's about, like you said, Rachel, helping people understand, or accepting it first yourself, and helping others truly understand that. And compassion and curiosity, guys, compassion and curiosity.
Absolutely. And just to kind of add on to that super quick, I would say, like I was saying, you know, even undiagnosed as well, if you think any of that resonates with you, you're not dramatic. It's not something wrong with you. It's not something that you just have to deal with. It's valid. It's incredibly valid. And there are so many ways that, you know, by speaking to people, by seeing if you know, by getting help if you need it. Obviously, coaching's been incredibly beneficial for me, because I wouldn't have looked at all of this. I would have sat there still thinking I'm dramatic and still be in a downward spiral. If it's something that is affecting you, or you know, if things ring bells, there are so many ways that, you know, you can find help, but ultimately you're not being dramatic.
Not at all. And like I say, finally on that, it's a need versus a want. You know, there is a difference. Like you've got a need to not be hot. Like, it's a need, not I want to be, you know, I want to not be hot, is I need to not be hot. And so it's about reframing. It's a need, right? And your needs are valid. So Rachel, honestly, thank you. So powerful, what you've shared. And I think it's going to help a lot of people, you know, get clear, and maybe hopefully help them get that support that they need and deserve. So guys, thank you so much for joining us. And next week, we're doing academic success, and Monday kicks off with school is built for one kind of brain. This isn't it. And we've got two of our coaches, Sarah and Sophie, going to be speaking on that on Monday. So join us then. But have a great weekend. And thank you for listening. And we'll see you next week. Bye. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks.
My jazz hands.